Hey everyone, and welcome to the Elliott and Dad Show. This is Elliott, and I'm Dad. So Elliott, what are we going to do today?
We're going to make ice cream.
Sounds delicious. So let's look at our ingredients, and I'll put them on the screen right now. So we're going to need half and half. This doesn't work so great with milk, so I would definitely want something with a more higher fat content, like half and half or heavy cream. And we need about a cup of that. Sugar, 1.5 tablespoons. Vanilla, about 1.5 teaspoons, ice, 1 small Ziploc bag and 1 large Ziploc bag. I suggest using like a freezer bag because we don't want these things opening up and getting everywhere. And we're gonna need about a quarter cup of salt. And so that's gonna be the ingredients we're gonna need for our ice cream. Now it may seem like a lot of sugar, but what happens is when we ingest cold things, our taste buds for sweetness actually kind of get minimized. And so things don't taste as sweet. So even though we're adding a lot of sugar, it's not going to taste as sweet as you would think. So what happens in other countries where they don't have good refrigeration and they drink things like soda and they drink it warm, they actually alter the ingredients and they actually put less sugar in there because it would taste really sweet if you had it warm. So if you want to give it a shot one day, try some soda when it's warm and you'll see it tastes a lot sweeter.
Now for a little science.
Sounds good. So let's figure out the science behind all this ice cream making, and then we'll get to making some ice cream. So, Elliott, what temperature does ice melt at?
0 Celsius.
Good job. 0 Celsius is, or Celsius scale is what they use in most of the countries and in science here in the United States. But we may know that we use our Fahrenheit scale for everything else. So 0 Celsius is 32 degrees Fahrenheit. And so that's the temperature at what ice melts at or freezes at. So depending if you're going to heat it up or cool it down. So we are going to make some ice cream. So our ice cream mixture is actually going to freeze at 27 degrees Fahrenheit or -3 Celsius. And so that's much colder than when ice typically freezes at. So if we want to freeze our ice cream, those ingredients, we have to make it colder than the -3 Celsius or the 27 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's going to be our goal today. So how do we do that, right? We need to get some science to do that. So why can't we just stick it in the freezer and let it just freeze? Well, the issue is, if you look at the picture here, you'll see that ice cream, our mixture, has other things in it. For example, it's going to have some air bubbles, which is going to make it fluffy, right? The more air bubbles, the bigger and fluffier it is. Think of soft serve ice cream, has lots of air in it. It has ice crystals once we freeze it. We have our sugar solution, and we have fat coming from the milk itself. And so those ice crystals, we want them really small. And so if we put this in the freezer, all the water that's in the ice cream mixture is going to freeze at once, and it's going to be really hard and kind of taste like an ice pop. And we want nice, soft, creamy ice cream. Yeah. So we want to keep those crystals really small. So how do we do that? Well, if you look on the screen here are ice crystals under the microscope, right? You can see those things. We want those broken up as small as possible. So what we're going to have to do is freeze it really quickly, and we're going to have to kind of mix it and keep churning it up. And so we break up those ice crystals to get it nice and soft and creamy. So how do we freeze it really quickly? That's where the science is going to come in. So there's something called freezing point depression. And you may have witnessed this before in everyday life, especially in the winter, maybe not so much in this winter since it was kind of warm. But did you ever wonder why in the winter they add salt to our roadways or our driveways? What is the salt going to actually do? Well, it's going to melt our ice, right? Once the temperature gets below that 0 Celsius, it freezes. If it gets above the 0 Celsius or 32 degrees Fahrenheit, it's going to melt, right? And so how does that work? Well, when we add salts, any kind of salts, to our water, in this case, in the winter, our ice, it's going to lower the freezing point. So what it does is it lowers the point at which that ice actually freezes. And so since the temperature is not that cold, it actually forces it to melt. And so if you look at the picture here, what's going to happen is the salt's going to get in the way of those connections between the water molecules. They're called hydrogen bonds. And it's going to break them apart. When it breaks it apart, it allows it to go back into its liquid form, which we know as liquid water. So the salt solution we're going to create today is actually going to lower the freezing point of water to about -16 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm sorry, -16 degrees Celsius, or about 2 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's going to make it really cold. So we're going to make sure that we're careful today, and maybe use a towel or something to actually hold on to the ice mixture so we don't freeze our hands. So when we add the salt, it's going to lower the freezing melting point of our water, but it's also going to require heat to make it melt. So as it continues to melt, it's going to get more heat. Where's it getting the heat from? Well, it's going to get the heat from the surroundings. In this case, from the bag of the ice cream mixture. And as it pulls that heat in, it's going to keep pulling it in and allowing it to melt. So it's going to make that mixture much colder. And so the ice cream mixture is going to start to get really cold really quickly as it loses heat to the ice salt combination. And in doing so, it's going to actually freeze it. And what we're going to do is we're going to kind of smash it up and move it around to not only pull out the heat faster, but also to churn it up, breaking up those ice crystals. So that's our goal today. So Elliott, what should we do?
Let's make some ice cream.
Sounds good. Okay, so we have all our ingredients and everything we need. The one thing I forgot to tell you, we're going to need a towel or something to hold this ice mixture because it's going to get really, really cold. Remember, negative 16 degrees, so like it's pretty cold. So we're going to start with our small Ziploc bag, and Elliott's going to hold that for me, right? And so this is where the ice cream mixture is going to go in. So first thing we're going to do is going to add a cup of our half and half. And again, the reason we're using half and half, we want that high fat content to make this nice and creamy. All right, let's try to get that in there without spilling it. Okay, so we have our half and half. The next thing we want to do is we want to add our sugar. So I'm going to get some sugar for us. And so the sugar, I'm going to add 1.5 tablespoons. So here's 1 and about a half. Okay, and the next thing we're going to do is add our vanilla, because it's going to be vanilla ice cream. And we're going to add about 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla. Okay, so we have our half and half, we have our sugar in there, and we have our vanilla. So we're going to close it up. Now you want to make sure the thing is sealed really good, because remember, we're going to place this in a bag of ice and salt, and we don't want salt getting in there because it's going to be disgusting. Okay, do a dad test, see if it's completely sealed up. All right, what do you think? You think it's good? Okay, so next we're going to take our larger bag, and I suggest maybe a freezer bag, something stronger. And what we're going to do is put a little bit of ice in the bottom. And then we're going to place our bag here. Oh, the one thing I want to make sure, we have to actually open this up 1 second, is try to get as much of the air out as possible. So we're just going to squeeze a little bit, get the air out, and then let's seal it back up. Again, make sure it's sealed. So that's important to get the air out. This way, there's nothing but our ice cream mixture in there. We're going to place that on our layer of ice. Then what we're going to do is going to place some more ice on top of it. So I'm going to add this right here, like that. And then what we want to do is we want to add our quarter cup of our salt. And so we're going to place that into our bag. And then what we're going to do is we're going to close this thing up. And what you want to do is same thing. You want to kind of roll it to get some of the air out. That's important. And then seal it up. And then you want to start really mixing all the ice with the salt together. And you want to contact that inner bag as much as possible. And it's going to start to get cold, so I could wrap it in a towel. And then you kind of squeeze it like that, shake it up, move it around. Don't squeeze too hard because we don't want that bag to break. And you're going to do this for about 5 minutes. And you can kind of monitor and see what's going on. Once you feel like the inner ice cream bag is getting harder, then you know you're good to go. It's going to make it somewhat the consistency of soft serve ice cream, which is delicious. And if you do want to make it any harder than that, then you can take that mixture and then put that in the freezer as well. So we're going to keep doing that, keep mixing, keep mixing. And what's going on, remember what we said before in our science portion of this, is that The ice is mixing with the salt. The salt's going to lower the freezing point, start to make that ice melt, and you'll notice the ice start to melt. And it's going to continue to pull heat from the surroundings, so from outside the bag and from the ice cream mixture. As it's pulling that heat, it's going to make that mixture get colder and freeze. And the churning is going to break up the ice crystals, making it nice and creamy and soft. So how are we doing, Elliott?
I don't know.
Let's see.
Yeah.
A little more. We're going to keep going. Keep mixing it up. And if for some reason you take it out and it seems like it can go longer, put it back on the bag and keep going. You can always add more ice and more salt as well. Okay, so once you've mixed it 5, 6, maybe even 7 minutes, and you feel like the inner bag is the consistency that you're looking for, we're going to open the bag up. And what you want to do, this is the most important part, is you want to rinse off this with a little bit of cold water to get any residual salt off it. Otherwise, it's going to get into the ice cream and taste disgusting. So we're going to rinse it off real quick, Elliott. Okay. And then get yourself a nice bowl. We're not even going to wait. We're going to dig in and try it right now. That's delicious. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.